Okie day. Team, got my fun camera today. This week is about sugar. I guess you could use this as a synonym for processed foods. So, the sugar issue. Now, I'm sure I don't have to tell you too much about how sugar can be detrimental for you, and I'm very against taking anything away. As you may have noticed, we haven't really taken away anything in this program yet. But just so you're aware, if you go to the grocery store, about 75% of things have sugar in them. Hectic, right? Also, obviously, ultra processed food triggers dopamine pathways and becomes addictive. Did you know that just 5 pounds of visceral fat impacts metabolic health? So in your in-body scans, you get a visceral fat score, and that's always one to try and get down. So I don't want to harp on too much and be all negative about sugar and things like that. I think we all know roughly that too much sugar is going to be bad for us. What we want is what to do. So let's start with outsmart the hidden sugars. Did you know, I mean, this is just a list I found, there's 262 different names for sugar labels. That's hectic, right? So ways to avoid this is understand how to read labels. There's a general rule of thumb: if it has more than 4 ingredients, it is most likely processed. If you haven't heard this one before, but shop the perimeter of the store. So if you go to the supermarket, all the stuff around the outside is typically the fresh things, because that's where they put all the fridges. And then look for added sugars, obviously, within the labels. If you want to aim for something, even though there's food in there, see if you can limit the added sugar to 4 grams per serve. If you're asking me something about what about bananas or apples or something, they don't have labels, so it doesn't matter. So there you go. Things without labels, good to go. I am completely guilty of having a sweet tooth, so if you do want to partake in these sugar pleasures, here's a couple ideas. We can save it for desserts. Generally, you would have eaten beforehand, and evening metabolic impact is less than morning metabolic impact, conveniently enough, due to some things like cortisol, insulin sensitivity, things like that. So yeah, if you were late in the day, also helps you fall asleep. Post-workout is the premium time to eat sweets if you were ever going to partake in that. So after a workout, your muscles are primed to suck up some glucose. So I recommend definitely, if you need to, that's the time for it. And then if you can, ideally you never pair or eat just a straight up glucose alone. Try and pair it with some protein and fiber as well to help absorb those insulin spikes. Insulin spikes, or high insulin, low blood sugar is hungry. Okay, other things that can help your sugar cravings if you're one to crave sugar. Fermented foods are very good for this. They give your gut something to do. They essentially eat the sugar for you. So that's how you can sort of get rid of those cravings, if you will. Good little fun tip here. Fiber, if you can look for foods that fall within this 3:1 to 5:1 carb to fiber ratio. So if it's got what's a number that goes into 3 and 5? 15. If it's got 15 grams of sugar, we want at least 3 to 5 grams of fiber in there. It's a good little rule of thumb. And then also to help the gut, some good quality fats are always very useful. So if you're eating very low fat, make sure you add quality fats back. You don't add heaps of fat, but grass-fed meats, fish fats, olive oil, things like that can help with your gut health. I don't really like to harp on too much about gut health. It's such a done thing, but you know, just the simple things: bit of fermented food, bit of fiber, good fats. Okay, there are some hidden sugar traps that you may not know. So a lot of breakfast foods are not as healthy as you might think. For example, some granolas, yogurt parfait. So like, you know how you got like yogurt and then basically jam, and then like yogurt and then nuts and things like that. So just watch out for those type of things. Cereals, obviously. For this week, I've put in diet drinks. Just in general with diet drinks, if you're trying to kick a sugar addiction, it might be a good step, but eventually it is the fact that we're drinking sweet things that's the problem. So if you can abstain from sweet drinks, even for just a week, just see how you feel. It might be a fun little place to start. Again, even though they have 0 calories, it's more of an addiction thing rather than a calorie thing in this regard. Now, also be a little bit scared. Also be a little bit wary of some savory foods like some bread, pasta sauces, salad dressings. Often they can contain hidden sugars, so just read your labels. fairly simple stuff, but don't assume that any one thing is sugar-free because it says health or diet or something on there. Okay, now what are we going to do this week? I thought this week, since we're towards the pointy end of things, that I might give you a few options and you can play around with it. So I've got 6 little things here, one leads into the other, each one. So recommend starting on the start here side, and then if you want to make it a bit harder, you can move this down the line because you can use this program for perpetuity. So the first step would be to find one processed food that you eat and then just replace it with something better. So the example here is I eat granola, let's say, so I can try some nuts and an apple instead. Okay, so basically I just make it. Additionally, there's a little hack where you add some acid into your meals. So long story short, basically it just helps break down the sugar easier, and so and it will help blunt your insulin response. So if you can just add a little bit of acid or lemon juice, lime juice into a meal, then voila, make a olive oil and lemon salad dressing, and then voila, easy as. And then the one that I'm probably going to go with is that I'm going to try and add a fermented food in with a meal. Cool, nice and simple. Add some sauerkraut, I don't mind the sauerkraut or the kimchi, or even some yogurt, some natural yogurt, no sugar. If you want to make these a bit more difficult, we can go for a whole week of prepping all our food. If you are at home, then that's not too difficult. But if you're out in the real world, not that home's not real, but if you're out in the world, it can be a little bit harder, so a little bit more advanced of a trick. Additionally, you could aim for tracking your sugar per day. Aim for about 25 grams or under. Would be very illuminating task, but again, I do this after I do the other 3. And then if you really want to go crazy, you could just create a plan, prioritizing gut health, fermented foods, fiber, good fats at every meal. That would be pretty advanced. Unless I've got all the other 5 of these, I wouldn't worry about that one. So there we go. Pick which one, tell your accountability group which one you're going to roll for. Now, if you want some more advanced things you can measure, there are some pretty crazy stuff you can do, but I'm remembering that we always want to start at the simple mode. So morning fasting glucose levels we could track, waist circumference we could track, energy crashes is a bigger diary, and then post-meal hunger timing, they would always be things, but they're always a good measurement of seeing what your insulin's up to. There are some blood tests and things like that you could do, but that is beyond the scope of what I want to talk about. If you wanted that, then go see a healthcare professional. But just some other things you can track along. Very easy, the waist circumference one, that's nice and simple. And then making it stick. Now, I recommend making a commitment to yourself. There's 2 things that I think you should always come back to. One is leverage your accountability group, so tell the people that you're in your little group with, like, hey, I'm going to give this a go this week, and then they can ask you. And then every day, if you're still not doing it, you should connect back to your goals. Do you still have your goals at the front of your head every single day? If you do not, go back to the goals one and get after it. Cool? All right, I'm here to help. Ask me questions. I'll see you out there.